Theo and I have 10 bold predictions for fantasy football this year. 10 bold predictions coming right at you. Theo, let's go.
I've got Brian Thomas Jr., who's currently the wide receiver 9 overall, staying inside the wide receiver 1 line. We're going to have at least 2 rookie wide receiver 1s. And I know that's not that bold. Brian Thomas Jr. is balling out right now. He's had back-to-back weeks with 20-plus PPR points. But, Matt, I think the big takeaway is this ascension doesn't just stop this season. It's going to continue all offseason long. Brian Thomas Jr. is the next peak Josh Gordon, on the field Josh Gordon. And he's going to be selected inside of the top 15 overall picks next year in 2025 drafts. He possibly is a first-round pick in 2025, depends on sort of the team outlook on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Go get your Brian Thomas Jr. bags right now in Dynasty and in redraft. If anybody thinks they're selling high, go ahead and get them. Tough matchup this week against the Chicago Bears, but he's still in your lineup.
You can't say to start that this isn't that hot and then come in with something that is hot, because I'm telling you right now, and it's not that hot. He's going to keep producing this year. No. The hot take is the takeaway, right? The bold prediction here is that this is a first-round pick, Brian Thomas, first-round pick in 2025. My first bold prediction, I'm going to build on that. We have another second-year wide receiver in 2025 that will be a first-round pick because he absolutely melted faces in 2024 as a rookie, just like Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors. Just like Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors went to LSU. This is Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson redux with Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas both being drafted in the first round in 2025 after helping win leagues in 2024. Actually, Brian Thomas may help win people more leagues because he was drafted 5, 6, 7 rounds later than even Malik Neighbors. The thing with Malik Neighbors is, the bold prediction with Malik Neighbors, he will finish as the most productive per game wide receiver for fantasy point scoring in the history of fantasy football. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Puka Nacua, they approached 18 fantasy points a game. Malik Neighbors is going to crush 18 fantasy points a game, and he will be the fantasy points per game leader in the history of fantasy football among rookie wide receivers. What a time to be alive with Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas.
Yeah, and how does Brian Kelly go 10-3 with Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors, and Brian Thomas Jr. last year at LSU? That's a whole nother conversation, Matt. But I love it. And Matt, what's the chances Malik Neighbors can be the number 1 overall pick in fantasy football in 2025 in PPR leagues? You're telling me that the guy's going to average close to 20 a game as a rookie. If he can do that in year 1 with Daniel Jones, why can't he go nuclear in year 2? That's a whole nother topic. That's a really, really fun one. For me,
well, it's going to be the debate. The big debate next year is going to be Jefferson versus Chase versus Neighbors. Sorry, no CeeDee Lamb in that conversation.
3 LSU Tigers at the top of drafts next year. What a time to be alive. And Matt, we're in week 6. So now we're starting to talk about bye weeks and post-bye week. This is always a time for franchises to self-scout, to change things that are not working, and maybe amplify the usage for certain players. We saw it last year at an extreme example with CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb enters the bye week averaging about 14 points per game, teetering on the high-end wide receiver 2 line, and then for the rest of the season, he ends up, this was from week 8 to the end of the season, he averaged 28 points per game. So they completely changed their offensive philosophy, and they featured their top playmaker. Now, this year, I think that the post-bye week winner is going to be Jahmyr Gibbs. And Jahmyr Gibbs is currently the RB7 overall in points per game. He's scoring very, very well. The running back production in Detroit is truly elite, with Gibbs at RB7, David Montgomery at RB8 in terms of points per game, about as good as we've ever seen collectively from a pair of teammates in fantasy football. But with Jahmyr Gibbs, we've seen a declining routes run rate every single game. This is an odd choice for a player that had over 70 targets as a rookie and was top 8 in running back targets last season. This is sort of also odd for the makeup of a player who had the most single season reception total in Alabama history under Nick Saban. Jahmyr Gibbs getting more utilized as a receiver out of the backfield, or at least approaching his target share and target numbers that he saw as a rookie, I think is something that the Lions coaching staff is going to self-scout this week. And there is a chance, if we see Jahmyr Gibbs take a real big step as a receiver out of the backfield moving forward, that he can challenge the group of old guy running backs for the RB1 overall. I wouldn't necessarily bet on him reaching that final ceiling, but I think that he's going to finish inside of the top 5 overall scorers
It's
at the
a
running back
bold
position.
prediction show. Say
Okay,
it.
there you
Just
go.
say he's going to be the top scoring fantasy running back for
Okay.
the rest of the season.
Bold prediction. Jahmyr Gibbs finishes as the RB2 overall to one of the old guys.
You almost did it. You almost. It's so
Almost.
good. You're too rational. You're too hyper rational for a bold prediction show. You balance me out because I'm going to tell you, Jalen Wright will outscore Devon Achane. Devon Achane is 190 pounds. He is in an offense that churns through running backs. Like the stretch zone running scheme is perilous for running backs and their health. And now, no surprise, the small running back has a concussion. The small running back has a hip injury. The small running back has a shoulder injury. Who is going to come in? A bigger running back with similar, but not quite the same level of explosiveness, but pretty explosive, 95th percentile burst score, 95th percentile speed score on PlayerProfiler.com for Jalen Wright. He also is top 5 in breakaway run rate and top 2 right now in juke rate, evaded tackles per touch. When you look at these metrics, it's all about Jalen Wright in fantasy football moving forward. You got to stash him now. If he's available, get him. He's going to outscore Achane.
Yeah, this is one that's depressing for me to hear, Matt. I'm a huge Devon Achane enthusiast, and I have a ton of exposure to him on my Dynasty rosters. But this is the kind of the thesis that we had all offseason long when it came to drafting Jalen Wright. Now, the difference is the Dolphins' offense has just been abysmal to start the year, but we do get Tua Tagovailoa coming back in Week 8, and you have not only Devon Achane dealing with a bunch of ailments plus a concussion, but you have Raheem Mostert is already banged up. And this is a player who's missed significant portions of the season in multiple years during his career. He's been sort of somewhat lucky in terms of his injury luck while he's been a Miami Dolphin. But if you think back to the days in San Francisco, the guy would play literally half the year. So Jalen Wright, we saw exactly what we needed to see last week against Buffalo. He looked big and explosive. Now you have the bye week where he didn't cost you as much fab if he was still available in your league because of the bye week, and he's still attainable if you want to go and trade for him. But you're absolutely right. When Tua comes back, you could have 10 weeks of the season with Jalen Wright leading this backfield with a competent quarterback behind center. This could absolutely happen, as depressing as it is for me to say. And we talked about Achane. Let's talk about another year 2 player, and let's pivot over to the tight end position. I think there's a lot of people who view Tucker Kraft as some sort of a sell high. We've seen him finish as the tight end 1 overall in consecutive weeks. This whole past offseason, we talked about how great this year 2 class of tight ends was. We talked about Sam Laporta. We talked about Dalton Kincaid. And the year 2 tight end who's leading all of the entire class in tight end scoring by a wide margin is actually Tucker Kraft. And when you simply look at Tucker Kraft's splits with Jordan Love, he's averaging over 16 points per game in those 3 games that Love has been on the field. That's number 1 overall at the tight end position in that stretch. He's been a yak king. He's running routes 80% of the time. This situation is not completely unlike Trey McBride's ascension last year. A player with day 2 draft capital, didn't do a whole lot as a rookie. We saw some at the end of the year with Kraft, but didn't have like a massive year, then gets his opportunity this year and runs with it. I think the market is seriously underrating Tucker Kraft's rest of the season value in Green Bay. He finishes as a top 5 scorer at the position.
Yeah, the number 1 scorer at the tight end position is going to be George Kittle. He's your tight end 1 this year, because everything you said about Tucker Kraft is also true about George Kittle, but George Kittle has a lot less target competition now with Christian McCaffrey hurt, Deebo Samuel clearly not himself. This team, the 49ers, zeroing in on Kittle as an every week weapon. And so I can see it finishing out Kittle Kraft, top 2 tight ends this year. You can see it. It's easy to see. Now, I mentioned juke rate. I mentioned explosiveness for Jalen Wright. A player that's not showing that at all is DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift is getting all the opportunities he would want in Chicago, but he's not cashing in. Now they've pulled the goal line work from him, and they're giving it to Roschon Johnson. Roschon Johnson is simply a more efficient runner between the tackles. He's better on the outside. He's better in the passing game as a receiver. Roschon Johnson's just a better receiver overall, and he will finish with more fantasy points rest of season than DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, that one's bold. And to Swift's credit, we have seen the last 2 weeks him playing at an exceptionally high level. And you sort of nailed it with the receiving work. That's sort of been Swift's MO in this offense recently. They've utilized him as a receiver. He's running with it. You're going to have to need a breakthrough in terms of snaps played. But one thing that leads to more snaps, time in, time again, is touchdown scoring. And Roschon has 3 in the last 2 weeks.
And ball security. There's a lot that can go wrong for DeAndre Swift just because his passion is not football. He's there for paychecks. We know that about DeAndre Swift. When Roschon Johnson loves the game, that will start to matter more and more and more. His ability to lead. He was the team captain at Texas. It was not Bijan Robinson. This is something that is going to continue to build and build and build. And it's not necessarily going to be injury driven. It's going to be just that Roschon Johnson is undeniable, and we'll all be seeing it, especially in the second half.
Yeah, I think you nailed it with the second half. It's sort of you could see Swift breaking down and Roschon, just him getting to a 50% snap rate here would be a big step. I like this one. I don't know if I'm quite there, but I think it could be close. They could have similar scoring numbers. It's bold. It's pretty bold. It's pretty bold. I will stay with Chicago, though. I will go with a bold prediction, mainly for this week, not necessarily rest of the season. But I do think that another big performance this week is gonna really get fantasy managers excited for the player that they drafted. Last year, we saw DJ Moore have his true breakout season, arrives in Chicago, clicks with Justin Fields, puts up fantastic numbers, hits career highs in all categories, finishes as the wide receiver 6 overall. Then this season, we had a very slow start to the year, and really a slow start for the Chicago offense, kind of stuck in the mud with Caleb Williams struggling. We had the DJ Moore revenge game, though. Goes up against the Carolina Panthers, and he absolutely shreds them, gets his big week that we've all been waiting on, and that coincided with Caleb Williams' big breakout performance. It was really, really like a big sigh of relief for fantasy managers who drafted Caleb, especially in Dynasty, to see him put up that big number and to do so with providing fantasy scoring for his top option. I think that they are even better this week. DJ Moore is going to have a top 5 wide receiver finish this week. He has a fantastic matchup against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville has been getting absolutely shredded to outside wide receivers. They are decimated in the secondary, and every week they're just getting shredded. DJ Moore in London, early in the morning on the East Coast, even earlier in the morning on the West Coast, Sunday morning, DJ Moore is going to put up another 2-touchdown performance, and he's going to smash. And one thing that's interesting, Matt, is we always talk about contingent upside and sometimes players seeing a larger role when their teammates are away. It's actually been kind of the contrary this year for several teams, including Chicago. DJ Moore has his best numbers when he's playing alongside Allen and Odunze. They should be fully healthy this week against the Jaguars. He's going to smash.
And Rome Odunze is going to be your league winner next year. So just follow Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams will provide for you, whether it's DJ Moore this year, Rome Odunze, get him in every league next year. Oh, baby. Staying with the wide receiver position, staying with a rookie wide receiver. This was a great rookie wide receiver class. The one overrated rookie that you can point to is Marvin Harrison Jr. That's right. Now, he's been sustained with touchdowns. I get it. But the catch rate, not impressive, and very volatile target distribution week in, week out. He's not a consistent target share player yet. He might be at some point in the future, but you know who is? You know who's top 12 in target share at the wide receiver position? It's actually Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey will outscore Marvin Harrison Jr. in fantasy football this year. You got this week against Denver. He's going to avoid Patrick Surtain. You're going to have Quentin Johnston absorbing a lot of the coverage from alpha corners because Ladd McConkey plays more in the slot. So he's going to be just abusing these slot corners week in, week out. After Denver, he's got Arizona. It's on for Ladd McConkey for the rest of the season. Make sure you go get him, go trade for him. Ladd McConkey, oh baby, and this rookie class, oh baby, oh baby.
He's going to have a great matchup this week. We expect to see, like, Denver is a machine right now defensively, but I would expect that Patrick Surtain is just going to match up with Quentin Johnson on the outside, and McConkey has a chance to kind of dink and dunk his way to a really effective week. You also have, Matt, we talked about the self-scouting coming out of a bye. What better way to open things up offensively for this offense to be hyper-targeted to Ladd McConkey, to even amplify that target share that we've seen in the beginning of the season. They used the second-round pick on him for a reason. The guy projects to be a big-time target earner. I love the call. I don't love hearing you disparage Marvin Harrison Jr., but I do love hearing the hype and enthusiasm for Ladd McConkey. It's bold. It's very bold. It's bold.
We're supposed to be bold here. If I could just say, oh, Ladd McConkey is going to be pretty good the rest of the year. That's not a bold prediction.
This week we have the league's two top scoring offenses going up against one another with Washington and Baltimore. The league's top two fantasy scorers at the quarterback position with Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels. All eyes are going to be on Baltimore, Maryland when these two in-state rivals go up against one another. 40 miles separate the two stadiums, Matt. But I want to look a little bit further up I-95 to Philadelphia. The sort of forgotten quarterback, Jalen Hurts, has a tremendous matchup this week against a Cleveland Browns team that is falling apart on all levels. The offense is a mess. The Browns have allowed the most sacks in the NFL by a high margin, and they are suffering injury after injury in their defensive secondary. This is a perfect get-right game for the Philadelphia Eagles offense that was just embarrassed against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Jalen Hurts gets back A.J. Brown. Jalen Hurts gets back Devonta Smith. Saquon Barkley is playing at a tremendous level. And we talk about self-scouting. The Eagles have come out and had such a poor performance in terms of the early turnovers. I think that's something that they can correct during the bye week. And they have an ideal get-right matchup this week against the Browns. Jalen Hurts, who has challenged for a QB1 overall finish in multiple seasons of his career, is going to put up a QB1 overall finish on the week. He's going to absolutely smash. If you play DFS, put some Jalen Hurts lineups out there. And all of you fantasy managers may be saying, you know, why did I invest that early one in Jalen Hurts? So many guys behind him have been scoring higher points per game. I think he's going to bounce back in a major way, and you're going to feel really good about him rest of the season with what you see on the field this Sunday against Cleveland.
I love Jalen Hurts, but he's not going to win the MVP because Terry McLaurin is going to be a top 10 fantasy receiver. Terry McLaurin is winning in all quadrants. He's commanding a huge target share. He's commanding a huge air yard share. And he's just going to continue to incrementally move up and move up and move up the wide receiver rankings until you look up and, oh, Terry McLaurin's a top 10 receiver. He finally got the quarterback he's always wanted. And that quarterback he's wanted is Jaden Daniels. And Jaden Daniels will be the first rookie to win the NFL MVP since Jim Brown.
I love that one. And Matt, does Jaden Daniels give us a QB1 overall finish in fantasy football?
Yes.
I care more about that than I do the MVP.
Hey, if you like this video, if you want Theo and I to keep doing this every week, we'll look at the likes and we'll let you tell us whether this should be a weekly show or not. I would say like it.